Powered by Riverside FM.
Welcome to another edition of Unconventional Playbook. Please hit that like and subscribe button. Continue to help the station grow. The Vikings just made a trade for Cam Akers. Question is, are they done? Should the Vikings make another move? I think this Detroit Lions game, the big game on Sunday for Skull Nation, UP Nation, for all you guys out there getting ready for that tilt, will determine a lot, man. The Vikings get to 6-0. They're in the driver's seat for the number one seed in the NFC, and I know there's a lot of game to play, a lot of season to play, I should say, so I get that. I definitely get that. But if you're 6-0, do you make a big move to kind of solidify trying to get there? Like, I don't think anybody at the start of the season thought the Vikings would be 6-0. If you did, well, my hat's off to you. I thought they had the potential to have a good start. Really wouldn't pick them, wouldn't bet my house on them having a great start. But here we are. We're 5-0 heading into the big game on Sunday at US Bank Stadium with the Detroit Lions. But if they win that game, who should they target next? Should they make a trade? Should they stay pat? What do they need? For me personally, I would love to see them bolster their offensive line if they could add a really good tackle. And I know Dalton Reisner is coming back, and he's probably going to end up replacing Ed Ingram. But can you rely on the health of Dalton Reisner? Some people talk defensive line. Some people talk cornerbacks. We're going to explore that here. The name that I've heard bountied about, Dexter Lawrence. Would the New York Giants actually get rid of Dexter Lawrence? And if the New York Giants were in the game of trying to get rid of Dexter Lawrence, and they say everybody has a price, and I don't know what not the Detroit Lions, but the New York Giants price is for Dexter Lawrence, I would assume that whatever package they have would probably include 2 number 1 draft picks. Would you give that up if you're the Minnesota Vikings to make a run? See, these are tough decisions for Kwesi. Me, and I think the Vikings have given up a lot of assets when it comes to picks, and you can't just rely on free agency to build your team. You hear the comment now, F them picks. Well, I don't think you can F them picks. I don't think that's the right way to approach it. You got to have that balance. You got to have that balance of free agency and being able to hit some home runs in the draft. And right now, the Vikings are a little depleted when it comes to draft picks. Not that they can't recoup those at some point down the road, but right now, we just don't have that. So just think of what that would do if we were in the market to get a Dexter Lawrence, and I'm sure that there's possibly been some conversations between the Minnesota Vikings and the New York Giants. New York Giants have come out and said that they have no interest in trading Dexter Lawrence, and I can understand that. But do you give away, UP Nation, do you give away two first-round draft picks for Dexter Lawrence? Because I believe that's what it's going to take. Is he the missing piece to the Minnesota Vikings making a run at the Super Bowl? Oh, Dexter, don't get me wrong, man. Dexter Lawrence is a baller. Would he bolster that defensive line? Absolutely. Would he fit well in B-Flow scheme? Absolutely. But it's those assets, man. Another name that's been thrown about is Jeffrey Simmons, defensive tack for the Tennessee Titans. He's got 9 solo tackles this year, 1 sack. But would even the Tennessee Titans be interested in a trade? What would it take? Obviously, for Jeffrey Simmons, probably would be at least a first-round draft pick and some change. Are you willing to give that up for Jeffrey Simmons, who is a fantastic player? 1 sack this year, 15 tackles, 9 solos. Tremendous player. Then I heard cornerback room. They're looking on the East Coast for DJ Reed, who is a fantastic player, just had a great game against the Minnesota Vikings. DJ Reed's a fantastic player, but are you giving up a first-round pick for DJ Reed? The Jets possibly could be in the market to fire sell their team if things don't go well this Sunday. They just brought in Devontae Adams. They lose again. They're on the outside looking in terms of playoff expectations, trying to make a run in the playoffs. I like DJ Reed. He's a physical corner. He's a little handsy, but he really frustrates a lot of wide receivers out there. I think he's well respected. I know Sauce Gardner gets a lot of the pub when it comes to the New York Jets corners. But DJ Reed can play, man. DJ Reed can play. My only question is, if you were to trade for DJ Reed, how would that work for the Minnesota Vikings? You still got Shaq Griffin. You still got Stephon Gilmore. Would he play the slot? Would you only use him in the dime? Would he replace Shaq Griffin? You got to work out all those intangibles. I'm sure KOC, B-Flow, those guys know what they're doing, but it'll be interesting to see where they start to move people. That obviously would bolster our secondary as well. I'm not opposed to that, but what are you giving up for DJ Reed? J.C. Horn is another one. Me personally, I like J.C. Horn. Another physical corner. I think he's a little underrated, playing the run, kick and tackle. I wouldn't put him in the category of a shutdown corner, but he's a damn good one. Smart, field aware, would fit in great with the scheme. You can leave J.C. Horn on an island, and he would do well consistently. Really, really good player. But what are you giving up for J.C. Horn? See, this is the question. Everybody likes to talk trades. This is why fantasy football and all the fantasy sports are so big, because people like willing and dealing. But what are you giving up? What sort of assets are you giving up for these type of players? I just don't think you can throw away picks, especially when the cupboard is on the brink of being bare. And so you can't just say F them picks. Like, that's the new thing to say, F them picks, F them picks. You can't do that. These draft picks are the foundation of your team. And even though you have a huge amount of cap money next year in 2025, well, if you can underline that and build within the draft, that makes your team a little bit strong. And so you have to ask yourself, if the Vikings, barring any catastrophic injury, can stay semi-healthy for the rest of the season, looking at their body of work right now on both sides of the ball, do you need to make a move, or do you stay pat, run this thing out for the rest of the year, and use your money in free agency next year while hitting on some picks in the draft? Man, there's a lot of different philosophies to this. Another name I'm hearing about is Greg Newsome from the Cleveland Browns. And look, man, this is not, you got UP Nation, I'm a Cleveland Browns fan, born and raised in Cleveland. But the Cleveland Browns frustrate me, man. And so I know there are a lot of teams out there that the Vikings are looking at that are not coming from winning franchises. Obviously, we just mentioned a few: the Giants, the Jets, the Titans. But I would hesitate to bring anybody in from the Cleveland Browns. Greg Newsome is a good player. Don't think he's great. He's kind of had a history of being injured a lot. I would just hesitate on that one. I think he's more of a coverage guy. I don't think he's necessarily a man-to-man guy all the time where you can leave him out there on an island and expect for him to make plays. He comes from a really stout defense with the Cleveland Browns, but that thing is starting to trend downhill a little bit. They're not as strong and not as tough as they were last year under Jim Schwartz. I just look at him as more of a zone-based guy. Still can play. But if you look at the cornerback room, that would not be one of my first ones that I would look at in terms of bringing him in. That's just not me. One name that I would love for the Minnesota Vikings to bring in, and there's been a lot of news trending in this direction, is my guy Budda Baker. Would you bring in a Budda Baker? I would love to bring him in, but again, that question, I know it sounds like a dead horse, and I'm banging my head against the wall on this. What would you give up for Budda Baker? Still can play. You know, I think Arizona's looking to shop him. I think the Vikings probably could get Budda Baker for less than some of the guys that we have mentioned before. I definitely wouldn't spend a first-round pick on Budda Baker, but I think you can get him for less. He would fit the scheme. Again, he's one of these guys that are field aware. I think you have to be field aware to play in B-Flow scheme because a lot of it is based on reads. You heard B-Flow say, hey, this is not my defense. This is the guy's defense. I just put them in positions to be successful. They have to make reads off of that. Budda Baker is one of those guys that can help the Minnesota Vikings in that capacity. Those are my two dream targets. Budda Baker, Dexter Lawrence, man. You add either one of those two guys, as good as our defense is, it makes them significantly better, barring injury. And you talk about adding depth. Man, Dexter Lawrence, Budda Baker. Boy, if I'm telling you right now, UP Nation, Minnesota Viking fans, if the Vikings find a way to pull this one out on Sunday, if the Vikings are victorious on Sunday, which I think they will be, watch the Minnesota Vikings and their activity at the trade deadline. We all know Kwesi likes to cook. He's already done the Cam Akers thing. Look for him to make another move to strengthen this Minnesota Vikings team. He's not done, Skull Nation. He's not done. You can book it if they get a victory on Sunday, again, which I think they will do. If they get a victory on Sunday, look for Kwesi, Adolfo-Mensah, to make a big move for the Minnesota Vikings. Those are some of the names that I think the Minnesota Vikings are looking at in possible additions to this team. What do you think? Is there somebody out there that you would like to see the Minnesota Vikings go after? Out of all the names that we mentioned, who's on your priority list? Who would you go after to be the number one priority target? Give me some of your ideas, man. Put them in the comments. We'll talk about them. Maybe there's some names out there that I don't even know if they're available or not, or wasn't aware of, or maybe I just hadn't thought of. UP Nation, you guys be the GMs. What would you add to this Minnesota Vikings team? And what would you give up? It's an interesting topic, man. Please hit that like and subscribe button. We're continuing to grow. It's been an Unconventional Playbook. We'll make sure to see you when we see you. Latrey, take us home, man.
I don't know who I am. Can I say I'm the man? Am I losing my mind? Am I wasting my time? Do I know who I am? I don't know who I am. Can I say I'm the man?